The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. We promised that he'd come, and now he's here. The host of The Herd on ESPN Radio. The host of Sports Nation, the new program on ESPN2. Colin Cowherd. What's happening?
The most downloaded podcast at ESPN, I'm told.
What is? This is, yeah, until Sports Nation knocks it out of the park, probably.
Yeah, you bet. That's not going to happen, brother. That's nice. You get a lot of feedback.
I gotta say, I'm very jealous of your pipes.
Well,
I never like being on the podcast with somebody who's... My pipes aren't good anyway, but when they're significantly better than mine, I feel inadequate.
Well, this is 4 packs of Marlboros a day, Bill, for 20 years.
Did you have to, work on a radio voice, or was it something that came naturally?
It's funny because I'm very relaxed, and so it sounds, when you do a radio show, your voice is deeper and you're lighter because you get ramped up, and I'm talking 100 miles an hour. But when I'm relaxed and I'm talking to you or I'm at home talking to somebody, people always say, you have a deep voice. But on my show, I don't think it sounds that deep because I get so animated and worked up and frothy. So it's just kind of...
I did some research on you.
Sure.
From time to time, I'll do research on the BS Report. And I was surprised that you did not even have a radio show 10 years ago.
Oh, I got into it real late, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was a TV guy. I always wanted to be a radio guy. I grew up listening to Vin Scully and Larry King, and I wanted to be a radio guy. And then my first job out of college was AAA baseball play-by-play. It was my dream. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a radio announcer.
This was the Las Vegas Stars?
Yes, and was just very fortunate. And then it didn't pay any money. Didn't pay virtually any money. And after about 18 months, the local TV station, one of the owners had listened to me on radio, and he said, I think you tell good stories and you have a good sense of humor. Would you ever want to do TV? We're thinking of replacing somebody. And I said, sure. And then I remember they said it pays $37,000 a year. And you got to remember, when you're in minor league baseball, that is Donald Trump money. Yeah. I was like, I felt like a lottery pick. I was like, sweet. So I went and tried it. And, I didn't have anything to lose because I never wanted to be a TV guy. So I just had strong opinions and thought, I'm just going to do what I think's interesting. And that is strong opinions, have a sense of humor. And it worked. And a couple awards came in and I got more comfortable and, it took off.
And then you went to Portland.
And then I went to Portland from Vegas. I stayed in Vegas for about 6 years, Bill. Then I went over to Tampa. I got a job in Tampa.
Oh, gotcha.
And it was fun. And sports radio was just then starting. And this is a weird story. This is why I got into it late. It was just starting. It was bigger on the East Coast than it was on the West Coast. In fact, Rome, I think, had just kind of started. And then and ESPN wasn't nearly as serious about syndicated radio. Tony Bruno was kind of out there. And I was doing a fill-in show on Tampa radio because somebody got sick. And as luck would have it, Rick Scott, who is a consultant in sports talk radio, was in Tampa driving to the station and heard me and called Rob Weingarten, who ran the station, and said, who's this kid? And he said, he's a TV guy. And he said, keep him there. I want to talk to him. And he got there, and Rick came about 10 minutes later, and he said, get out of TV, go into radio. He said, I think you're really entertaining and blah, 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 blah. So then I got a job in Portland, and with my real goal to do radio, I got the TV radio gig in Portland, but I really had my eye on radio. And then one day ESPN called and said, there's a great job open. Would you be interested? And I said, sure, I'd be interested. And
so you went backwards on the most fun cities to live with list. You started in Las Vegas, you go to Tampa, Portland, still fun but a little rainy, and now Bristol.
I know. It's not the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to go from Yuma, Arizona to Tucson to Phoenix to L.A., like you. You did it the right way. You went from Holy Cross and now you're out in L.A. That's the right way.
I think next up for you is Winnipeg.
It's
Beirut.
It's not been but this is where I have to go for the career. Yeah. This is it,
Yeah. Well, the middle Connecticut during the summer can be kind of nice.
Spring, summers, falls are okay.
Sure.
I'm not going to retire here.
So have you always been doing radio by yourself? Because I have always... I don't get it. It's a talent that I could never do. I can't talk to myself for more than like a minute. I start feeling weird. And yet some people can do it. You could sound like you could do it for 6 hours.
Yeah, Bill, it's weird. It's hard to. This is a true story. I grew up. My sister was about 5-6 years older than me. By the time I got into junior high, she was gone. By the time I got into high school, she was gone. So I was sort of an only child in a way. And I grew up isolated in rural America on the coast of Washington. And my mom and dad divorced, and I was often by myself. And I loved sports. And, the truth is, it was an odd upbringing. I was by myself. I would, because I didn't have a big brother, big sister. My sister was older in a different age group, and she hung out with rock and rollers, and I was this jockey, nerdy kid. And so I started doing baseball, wiffle ball games, filling out little cards, talking to myself. And you know what? They always say the less presence a parent gets their children, the more creative they are. Because a kid is forced to be creative. Well, I was sort of forced to be creative. I was talking to myself. I was making up stories. Even today, this is embarrassing, but, my ex-wife, Kim, would say, are you talking to yourself? And I would say, yeah, just things are going through my mind. I talk to myself today in the car. I talk to myself in the bathroom. I'm working things out. I'm having conversations. It's very Ron Artesti. It's just sort of I think there's some things out there going on in my life initially that have led me to this point, and I feel very comfortable talking to myself at home or at work.
It sounds like we had the same kind of background, because I was an only child, and I was like you. My parents got divorced, and I had to spend a lot of time entertaining myself. But I did it differently. I did it with writing, but you did it by more verbally.
Most of my best friends were only children. Scholastically, it can be an advantage. Creatively, it can be an advantage. You grow up sooner because you hang out more with parents and not kids. And, you were probably doing the same thing. I mean, you're very entrepreneurial. You're very creative. And when you're a kid by yourself, you have to be. I mean,
here's the downside, though. The downside is you don't have that sister who's a year later, who's a year older, is telling you, no, don't ask her out yet. Make her think you don't like her. You're not getting that advice that you need.
Well, also,
at a pivotal age.
Do you find that I don't necessarily like hanging out with large groups of guys? I have very few friends, but they're really close friends. And I like hanging out with them individually, but I'm not a guy that wants to go camping with 8 guys. Because I didn't grow up.
Who is?
Okay, so all my buddies are the same way, and I always thought I was strange because I don't like guy trips. I don't like sports bars. I like to watch games by myself or one good friend.
Huh. Now that's where we differ a little bit. I always feel like I'm making up for lost time. I like being around my friends just because I feel like I grew up an only child,
Do you go to NBA games with somebody?
I like to. I mean, what's funny is my favorite person to go with is my wife, because she'll come up with comments that I normally would not have thought of. Whereas if I'm going with one of my friends or somebody who's in the NBA or a work friend or somebody, well, we'll talk about the stuff, or we'll get carried away and we'll be on tangents. And she actually focuses on the game. Look at that coach. It seems like he's just really sad. Like these very, simple observations that are kind of dead on in a weird way.
Bill, I always have a friend. We call her Hot Friend Ann on the show. And I always say this. I'll have her watch or listen to my radio show. And invariably, she always says the smartest thing. Before Sports Nation got on the air 2 weeks ago, all the producers had a party at my house. We put in the tape of the rehearsal. Ann had the smartest thing to say. We changed a show segment because of Ann. It's now really good.
Really?
Yeah. She said, blah, 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 blah. This is hard to follow. You're not explaining it to me. And we all had kind of a come to Jesus moment and went, you know what? This is too complicated. We've got to simplify this. And every segment now has this little descriptive opening thanks to Ann.
I wrote once that I thought people like my wife should be the type of people that we use as sideline reporters. And I think some people thought it was sexist, but, when you think about it, like a sideline reporter, really, what are they there for? They're not really making the game more entertaining, but they're there to tell us if somebody got hurt, or they're there to observe things. And I'd be much more interested in my wife's take on the San Antonio Spurs huddle. Because I feel like if she's just sitting there watching these 12 guys interact, she's going to think of something that somebody who's not a sports person, or somebody who is a sports person, they just wouldn't see. You know what I mean?
Oh, first of all, it's brilliant. You know what would happen?
What?
Diehard sports media critics would rip her and management people, mustaches as we call them, would then read that in the paper and think we can't have it because they can't take criticism. It's brilliant. I mean, the bottom line, I would be significantly more fascinated with somebody who gives you a common sense approach. Bill, I always say this to my staff on the radio show. I will rather take a smart person with limited sports knowledge as a caller over a sports diehard who's not really bright.
Right.
Because a reasonable person like your wife will see something based on intelligence or being perceptive that somebody who's a diehard who's not that bright won't. Go ahead.
You know who ruined it? Phyllis George. It was the one time they tried it, and she took kind of a beating from the critics and stuff with the NFL Today. I always forget that people are born before age 30 that are listening to. But Phyllis George, so it was Brent Musburger, Irv Cross, Phyllis George, the first defining pregame show. And eventually she just got knocked out because everybody's like, she doesn't know football. Why is she on there? But she actually, I don't know, I kind of liked having her on there, actually. That was pretty interesting.
Well, I just think sometimes, it's funny about the critics because years ago, print media had such a stranglehold on the critic business. Now blogs have taken it over.
Yeah.
And our audience, your audience and my audience is much more blog-ish than newspaper-ish. So when I have a mustache at ESPN say, what do you make of that? And if it's in the newspaper, I always say they have the right to an opinion, but my radio audience doesn't subscribe to a newspaper.
Yeah.
Nothing personal, but if Phil Mushnick rips me, I'll get one email. If the big lead rips me, I get 400. I mean, so what does that tell you? It tells you the highway that goes into my show is more blog than newspaper friendly.
But it's still a relatively small part of your demographic.
Absolutely. But criticism's healthy. I like to read, as long as it's somebody respectful, that, has common sense. I don't mind. I think it's kind of healthy to read it.
You got into hot water 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You sent a bunch of listeners over to the Big Lead, and it crashed the website. It actually turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to that guy's site. But and the blogosphere went after you, all that stuff. Now it seems like, I don't know, I don't really follow it, but it doesn't seem like you've done anything like that in a couple of years. Are you in a better place with all the bloggers?
Well, I regretted doing it because at the time, it's a long story, but we didn't know it was the first day we were on ESPN.com, and we just, in our email, or our ESPN.com people emailed Amanda, my producer, and said, you're blowing up ESPNradio.com. We're getting far more people into it than we expected. And I just started joking and said, this is a lot of power. Let's just blow somebody up. And then I'm an idiot. And I said, what's that media website you go to? At the time, I'd never heard of it.
Right.
And then, from that point on, I did. But I regret doing that. And, I don't know.
I bet, by the way, I didn't bring that up.
It's okay.
Because the thing that interested me about it is you got in hot water a couple times. You've apologized for it. I'm of the opinion, it's kind of whatever. I can see why the blogs would be upset and all that stuff. But at the same time, like if the roles had been reversed and they had shut down your ESPN radio site, they would have been excited about it. Oh, look what we did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
So it's kind of, but I guess like you have a bigger pulpit, so you have more responsibility, and, they're kind of the underdog. And I don't know, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, though, because I remember when they started, they tested out the ESPN Conversation at the end of 2007 underneath columns, and they hadn't told me it was going to happen. And one of the sites sent a whole bunch of people, and they posted all this stuff about me and my wife, all this stuff underneath, and then they were like celebrating after. So then when your thing happened with the Big Lead, it was kind of the opposite of that, but then all of a sudden you're a bad guy. So that's the part I never got.
Well, I think it is. Listen, ESPN's a big target. It is, for better or worse, it's the sports company of note in this country. And when you work at ESPN, it's like I have friends in Portland at Nike, and it's the wind blows harder at the top of the mountain, and ESPN's a big target, and so the little guys, the blog, are going to see ESPN, I think, naturally as a little bit of an enemy and a bully. So that's just the way it is. It's just it's like news with the Lakers is a big deal. News with the Clippers is less of a big deal because they're the Lakers and because of the Clippers. ESPN's a big target, and I'm a target because I work here. And
yeah, but why does anybody have to be a bully? It seems like we're all in this together. We all like sports. Some people have a bigger forum than other. I don't begrudge any blog or whoever from having an audience. Do what you have to do. I think I have a pretty good sense of humor about this stuff. Even what happened when they did the conversation thing, I joked about it in a post on Deadspin, 18 months later. Like, stuff happens. And the part that I didn't, I guess, like was that you were such a bully and a bad guy because you crashed this guy's website. And meanwhile, it was the best thing that ever happened to that website.
Well, and by the way, I just had a blog within the last several months post my home phone number. I mean, so that doesn't get mentioned by the blogs. They posted my home phone number, and thank God I was 2 feet from like Verizon, so I went and changed it. But I'm to the point where I think, Bill, like you, I mean, I remember reading you years ago on somebody clued me into you were in
probably my old website.
It was
Boston Sports Guy.
Yeah, Boston Sports. This was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
long, and you wrote something about Trot Nixon that made me laugh. You said he looked like what was it? Something about Trot Nixon or Al. He was stiffer than Al Gore. You made some line. I remember laughing in my sports office with the guys in Portland, and the reality was you've grown in stature, and I think. Just when you grow in stature, and, again, better or worse, I've grown in stature over the last 10 years of my career, you're going to get hit. Some of it's going to be really unfair, and some of it's going to be unsightly and unseemly, but it's just part of it. I don't read a lot of it. You're good. I mean, you have done, it's pretty amazing.
Stop.
No, I mean, seriously, I've said this before. You're one of the only people in the world outside of the big companies that makes money on the internet. It's pretty amazing. And people at ESPN, they're like, it's for your audience, it's a pretty amazing thing. I have a website. Believe me, I'm just trying to get flies in there.
Yeah.
So I think as you grow in stature, I would rather be known and people take cheap shots or shots at me than be unknown. I'd rather get the shots if the payoff is you're popular.
Yeah, and there is definitely a trade-off. I had a tough time, I'm going to say like 2005, 2006, in that range, kind of slowly realizing that I wasn't the underdog anymore. It was kind of depressing because I had made my bones on this website that for 2 years I didn't have more than 2,000 readers, and even by the fourth year I only had 15,000. And it was weird for me to think that things had shifted like that, and all of a sudden you're not the underdog anymore. You're the guy that people are taking shots at because for whatever reason. I don't know. It was depressing. It was like, is this what it's like? This is what you fight to get to, the point where everybody takes shots at you? But I'm in a much better place with it now. Well, I just think it bounces off you. You can't take it seriously. To these people, you're not a dude who has a wife and kids and who worked hard to get wherever you are. You're just you're basically a commodity.
Well, do you consider yourself a journalist?
I think I'm a writer. The term journalist, I think, depends on what you want to make out of it. Does that mean you're a reporter? Does that mean, I think I'm a columnist and a writer who has a podcast. So
your sensibility is most journalists see themselves as fighting for the oppressed or the little guy. I think that almost comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And so I would say your natural affinity is going to be aligning yourself with the little guy. I'm from radio and TV. I never thought of myself as a little guy. To me, bombastic one, funny one, outrageous one. So my natural sensibility as a broadcaster, I grew up with Harry Carey and Howard Stern. So I never wanted to be the little guy. I never aligned myself with him. You did naturally, so it would probably be tougher for you once you leave that realm of underdog and you're a big dog.
Well, the thing I think everybody has to remember is we're all in this together. We're out looking to follow sports and have a good time, and we're all on the same team with a lot of things. And you saw it even last week with, Wimbledon getting tape delayed, and whether it was a blogger or somebody with a columnist or somebody with a Twitter account, it didn't matter. We're all equally outraged, and we're all in that together. And I think the blogs have seen, I hope they're trying to eventually kind of fade away from that. We're the underdog and we have to attack everybody else, and just realize, like, hey, you guys, you pretend you're not mainstream, but you are to some degree.
Oh, sure.
They're mainstream blogs. Everybody knows who the mainstream ones are. And if they write something that is relevant or breaks a story or matters, people are going to see it. It's not like 1997 where if you wrote something, nobody would ever see it. If you could have a blog for one day and it could be emailed around the right hands, and honestly, you might have 20,000 readers. So, I think the whole underdog thing, they got to start to reconcile that a little, and they're here to stay. We're all fine with them. We all want them to do well. So now let's go to the next level.
Yeah, I think some are. Big Lead, to me, in the last 6 months to 8 months to a year has gotten a little more adult. I think their role, I think they're understanding there's a gravitas to what they do, and people listen to them and watch them. I go to them probably, I think I go to them every day. So, I mean, I think...
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think they give I think that, some of them do really funny work. And, if Fark, I mean, I'm a huge Fark guy. I go to Fark 2 or 3 times a day. I think it's hysterically funny. And,
what other sites do you go to for radio? Do you have a whole routine, like a 2-hour routine
well,
to get ready for the
I have
show?
a set of producers, 2.5 hours of prep in the morning. I get in at 7, and I prep till about 9:30, 9:45, and then they find all the stuff. And then a lot of times during the course, I'll go to the Big Lead. I'll go to your typical sites. I always read your stuff. I'll do anything on ESPN.com, CBS Sportsline. I'll go to about Drudge Report, Huffington Post. I go to the basic stuff to get, human interest stories, WallStreetJournal.com, all that stuff. So I like to just be well-read. So, I kind of talk extemporaneously about a bunch of different stuff. And so I don't have a routine, and my producers do most of it. But I just try to be well-read.
Are you making a list of stuff like, I want to hit this? Ooh, this looks good.
Yeah.
I should have a take on that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's play the hits, find the big stuff, get that covered, then try to find 1 or 2 stories that are a little out there that people can kind of, can galvanize opinions and get people maybe polarized, galvanize, whatever it does. It either separates people, brings them together. Everybody, try to find stories you'd have an opinion about.
Well, the thing I respect about what you do is that you try to find an angle on everything. And I think that's something a lot of people don't do. And really, when you look at the blogs and where that's going to go someday, it really all comes down to the angles and whether you actually have an angle or something, or you're just throwing stuff out there hoping it sticks. And, with you, I might not agree with half the things you say, but you'll say it in a way that, at least my brain will start moving, like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that, or I can't believe he thinks that. That drives me crazy.
Yeah.
The point is you're making somebody's brain move. And I think, whether it's a column, a radio show, you're writing magazine features, you're doing a blog, that's the goal. You want to make people's brain move. Yeah,
we just try to be thought-provoking, try to be self-deprecating and funny. And, I think I'm a better broadcaster today than 5 years ago. And I hope in 5 years I'm better than today. And, I thought it was interesting. Like today, I'm a huge, I really like the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
And some of my audience is like, okay, the NBA season's over. And I'm like, no, it's not. I mean, this is what the NFL does. The NFL season ends. You talk about it for 2 more months. And it's funny because the NBA stuff, I think it's fascinating. I love all the free agent stuff. I love the LeBron stuff. We had D-Wade on today. And I think it's interesting because I think there's a real psychology. He who goes to Portland, wife doesn't let him, backs out. That's great radio. I mean, that's really, people in Portland are furious. Kevin Pritchard's angry. To me, that's a really great story because every guy has a girlfriend or has, and they've talked him out of something. That's an interesting radio story.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody with the NBA 2 years ago. The 2007 playoffs were terrible. The whole season was terrible.
Yeah.
But the summer afterwards, the draft, the Durant Odin stuff, who's going to go first, and all the free agent signings, everything, it was almost more interesting than the actual season. And this person said to me, we have to get back to a point where the end of June and July aren't the most 2 interesting parts of our year. I thought that was interesting because you want your playoffs to be the most interesting part of the year. You don't want Hedo Turkoglu's switching at the last minute. But you're right. For some reason, out of all the sports, this is the sport that is like day after day from July 1st to July 15th, just riveting.
Oh, I think it's great. And Mike and Mike before me, because of the markets they're in and stuff, they don't do a lot of NBA. So, I seize it because I'm drive time in LA and Phoenix, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Dallas. I'm in a lot of NBA markets, New York City, Miami, Atlanta. So I like it. I think it's the best athletes. I think it's a celebrity-driven sport. People love it or they hate it. It's what's interesting, Bill. You grew up in Boston, so I imagine you're a huge baseball fan. I've read your stuff. You love the Red Sox. I get it. Here's the thing, is the one thing, the NFL's king, we all get it. I really do wonder in 5 or 10 years, are the Red Sox and Yankees separating themselves from the entire sport? Are we getting to a point that if they're not in the playoffs, the ratings are like 4s and 5s? In the NBA, we'll watch the Lakers, we'll watch LeBron, we'll watch the Celtics. But I wonder in baseball in 5-10 years, sometimes I watch baseball and I can't watch anything but the Yankees and Red Sox. I can watch a lot of NBA teams, NFL, college football, the college basketball, there's several teams. In baseball, more and more as I get older, I find myself drawn to fewer and fewer players and teams. It's weird.
Like Rays, Phillies, you didn't care?
No. Now I do because but like for instance, the Phillies are good again, and I've learned their players. It's the problem with college basketball is the minute you fall in love with them, they go to the NBA.
Yeah.
So every year it's a revolving door. I like the Phillies a lot more this year than last because now I know all the guys. And now I've seen them in commercials, and I watched them sweep the Mets this weekend. But last year, they were brand new. You didn't follow them closely every day, especially the Rays. Then they're in the World Series. Now this year, now I'm more into them because they built some sort of history here. There's a little tradition going on. That's why I think it's so important because, I'm not from Boston, but I watch Red Sox games. Why? They're good year after year. Same with the Yankees. I'm not from New York, but I find them fascinating. I just wonder if baseball, it's becoming too much have and have-nots.
I thought you were going another direction. I thought you were saying that you were about to say that you thought basketball was eventually going to become the dominant sport because it grabs so many young people. Or at least more dominant than baseball.
Well, that's my point. I do believe if you look at the NBA right now and its stars, first of all, the NBA Finals whacked World Series. Okay? Huge. Okay. And we're living in a brown world, more diversity. The bottom line is baseball continues to get older, more have and have nots, is not well marketed, it's not promoted. They are moving the World Series games back. But I'll tell you. Yeah, but
you know what though? That happened about 15 years too late.
Yeah.
And jumping on your point, this has been my biggest fear. Like, let's say my son, who's 18 months now, let's say I had him 20 years ago. What kind of baseball memories would he have from the World Series? He would have been asleep during basically everything in his formative years. And there are no day World Series games, nothing. So I don't understand. How are you grabbing young fans? And this is my problem with NBC with Wimbledon last week. You're not grabbing any young tennis fans with tape delay. They're out. Who won? And they don't want to watch it. So, I don't understand why these sports don't place a bigger emphasis on how do we get the next generation? How do we keep turning that around? Oh. And the NBA seems to actually care about that.
Oh, absolutely. They get it. Listen, they always said this about David Stern. The new ball didn't work, but the dress code did. The kind of the rap thing after Jordan didn't work. But then he realized it, got the right guys in the Olympics. Most of the players right now who are stars are overwhelmingly quality guys. They're good interviews. They're good guys. This league's
do you think that's luck, or do you think Stern gets at least some credit for it?
Yeah, he absolutely gets credit. The dress code, remember, it was racist. This is outrageous. No, it wasn't. As Michael Wilbon said, it's business. The bottom line is I was in Portland. Rasheed Wallace would have a do-rag, dark glasses, an old sweat. You're like, dude, come on. You're making $38 million over a 3-year deal, and you're wearing $7 sweats from like a sporting goods store.
You were there for a team that will never exist again in David Stern's NBA, the Jailblazers.
It was.
For a variety of reasons.
Awful to cover. Just not good human beings.
What was it like to watch a sport that, and really basketball in Portland mattered about as much as a sport will ever matter in a city, to watch that city actually turn on the team?
It was, they had every right to turn on the team. The team was not likable. Bob Whitsitt was incredibly arrogant, lived in Seattle, saw Portland as a stepchild, treated Portland like a stepchild. It was ugly. The fans had every right to turn on the team. J.R. Ryder, Ruben Patterson, Sheed, Zach, Bonzi Wells, in a very civil, decent town with wonder.
Hold on, you left out Mrs. Sabonis.
Oh, jeez. Seriously, I felt like a litigation reporter.
Yeah.
It was like I felt like Law and Order.
But isn't that good for you? Like, isn't something like the Jailblazers or the Mitchell Report, that stuff's good for a radio show?
Yeah, it got really old. I swear to God, I got Tark. So I became a law reporter in Vegas with the NCAA.
Right.
And then I moved to Portland, and I get the Jailblazers. It's like, after a while, I'm like, can I cover a basketball team that's just enjoyable? Literally, everything in UNLV was cheating. Everything in Portland was illegal. It was just, I went through like an 8-year, this vortex, this 8-year basketball hell.
Yeah.
I just wanted good guys and fun teams that won.
And now you live and now you brought it to UConn.
Yeah, it's funny. It's I will say this: Jim Calhoun is a bully.
Yeah,
but he is a great coach.
But he's a bully.
He really, I think he's a bully. He's just here's my problem with college basketball. The NBA is about the game and players. College basketball is about the coaches. Everybody bangs on these NBA guys. Oh, they leave college early. Let's see. I can have Jim Calhoun 70 yelling at me, or I can make 10 million, women fall all over me, and I can live in great cities or Storrs, Connecticut. I mean, you can't blame these NBA. You can't blame these college kids for not wanting Bobby Knight and these old coaches to yell at them. Who wants that? I wouldn't want it, and I'm 45. Who wants that life?
Hell, I saw it, with the Rick Pitino era in Boston. One of the last times you'll ever see the college coach come to the NBA and really thinking that his style is going to work. Oh, I'll be able to yell at these guys. I watched it. I watched the year that it happened when Antoine Walker got the $71 million contract. And all of a sudden he didn't want to hear from Rick Pitino anymore. No thanks. I don't want to be yelled at, Rick. And that was it. And now I think, basketball is really now moving to that Phil Jackson style of the guy sitting on the bench, just kind of hanging out like a substitute teacher almost. The timeout happens. He walks away from the bench, lets the players think about it themselves. That's where we're going.
Oh, listen, absolutely. When I grew up as a kid, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, Frank Kush, Dick Motta, those days are over. I mean, I wonder if Lou Pinella's not outdated.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, you can't. Kids have options, Bill. It used to be you had to go to certain places to get on television. The coach was the boss. The bottom line is kids have options. There's a million college basketball and football programs that get you to the NBA, and they're not going to deal with somebody, and for the better.
They had I don't know if you were flicking channels this weekend, but they had the 2005 Home Run Derby. These should just be running constantly with like a team of Mystery Science Theater experts just making comments like, oh my God, look at Bobby Abreu. He's 500 pounds heavier. Like it is so much fun to watch in retrospect. And I don't know how we weren't talking about this constantly. What were we doing?
Well, I was a minor league baseball announcer in Las Vegas, and Jose Canseco was juicing, and everybody knew it. It was everybody understood. It was big talk in the early 90s and the late 80s when I was in Las Vegas doing Las Vegas Stars games. Steroids were talked about then. But what happened, I remember Jason Stark said, and it was an interesting moment. Jason Stark said when it all broke, this was years ago, he said, I'm not sure it was really my job to cover it. And I thought, well, it is sort of. But then you sort of wonder, well, how does Jason Stark report it if he doesn't have test results? What would Jason Stark say?
Yeah, but what happened to that guy who peaked in McGuire that time? He became like a pariah. His McGuire's locker. Remember? He found the Andro in McGuire's locker, and he wrote about it, and all of a sudden he had breached the player reporter conduct rules or whatever.
Oh, being a beat reporter is overrated. It really is.
Well, I think in this day and age, I'm not sure you really need one anymore. I'm not sure what the benefit is compared to the cost and the travel and the amount of time.
Ask yourself this.
What are you getting?
Well, Clippers reporter, I'm watching the game on television. I mean, what are you going to get me, a quote? I mean, seriously, even the Lakers. Now, I understand traveling with the Lakers, you'd always want a warm body around the Lakers just in case.
Yeah.
But I'm watching the game. I'm listening to the game. You have Sports Talk Radio. What is a beat reporter getting me now that every game's on television?
I don't understand it either. Even in Los Angeles, they have good writers. They have the really good people covering the Clippers of all teams. But I'm not going to find out anything from any sort of press conference or interview that anybody gives of the sports team in this day and age. I'm more likely to get information from Twitter, honestly. I'm more likely to get an honest reaction from Baron Davis in a 140 characters that he has control of. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Over him talking into somebody's recorder.
It was funny because 10 years ago I was talking to somebody about this in the, I think, Oregonian, about this. And I said, to me, if I ran a sports section, it would be, I'd have like 4 columnists, do a lot of pictures, gossip on page 2. And they were like, typical radio, TV, bimbo.
Right.
I'm not so sure that's not what is interesting today. I mean, seriously, give me 3 or 4 really good columnists. At the L.A. Times, T.J. Simers gets people talking. Plaschke's a wonderful writer. Hire Mark Wicker from Orange County, put him on your staff. Have a good 2 columns a day, some funny letters to the editor, let people tweet to your sports section, good pictures, little gossip. I mean, that's what people like. You're not going to get young kids with beat reporters.
Yeah, and also I can't think of a single reason why an athlete would even talk to a reporter at this point. Like, other than to be nice?
Or sell something.
Yeah, well, that's when these guys, I wrote about this, but Tiger is classic for this. When his video game is ready to be launched, all of a sudden he's got time for people. It's under his control. You're invited. I took advantage of it once because it was my chance to spend 20 minutes with the guy. But he's in control of the process, and you see it with the more control they have. I just got the Beckham book got mailed to me in the mail. I'm going to be interested to read that and see, because he's, the master of controlling his image to a lot of degrees, but I don't know. I don't know where sports is going. This Twitter thing's been fascinating.
Oh, I think it has the potential to be fantastic. I think it's great.
The trade, the free agency, things breaking on Twitter.
By the way, on Sports Nation, we use it a ton. I'm all for it. Listen, if you can give fans immediacy. Hey, I don't have to break a story. Here's something that's overrated. Can I go on a rant again, Bill?
I'm going to hold on. I'm going to hook my seatbelt on, and I'm sitting here.
All right. Okay, the breaking stories is overrated. Reporters think we're all sitting at the edge of our seat. I couldn't tell you who broke a single story in 20 years. I don't remember, other than Woodward and Bernstein. I don't care. It's not about breaking. Newspaper people think it's so valuable. It has almost no value. I couldn't tell you a single. You give me a story, I have no idea who broke it. And I'm in the business. The bottom line is, who does the best job reporting it? I can remember great columns or great perspective. I never remember who breaks stories.
I've complained about this as well. And here's the ultimate argument to your defense in this. There's no scorecard of, who's winning. I would care if, Mark Stein, Rick Bucher, Chris Broussard, and Adrian Wojnarowski were locked into some sort of reporting duel. Steiny Mo is up 5. But who cares? They're reporting that Ron Artest signed with the Lakers a half hour before it's announced he signed with the Lakers. I'm going to find out anyway.
Yeah, and I want perspective. Bill, the bottom line is the winner is who has the best take or opinion on it that makes you laugh afterwards.
Yeah.
The bottom line is there are so many ways to get urgent news, blogs, tweeting, internet, anything. It's just a blur to me. I don't remember any story where it was broken. Seriously,
hold on. There's been one big one in the last 5 years.
Test me, see if I know it.
It happened this year. And the person who broke it gained notoriety from it.
Selena Roberts?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And I would say the Yahoo guys with the USC stuff, they were consistently breaking things that nobody else was getting. I think if you're breaking 3-4 straight times,
if you beat
a certain
people,
kind of story, that's pretty good.
Well, the Washington Post dominated that story with Nixon. The Washington Post was a must-read on that story. Yeah, so it's almost institutional, where you go to the institution and the reporters are, doing a great job on it. But the whole newspaper, Ben Bradley and beyond dominated that story. So, yes, I do think Serena Roberts, although she didn't get much of a payout off of it.
No, she didn't. It actually, I don't know if it helped her. And then, what's interesting, though? This is something I'd love to read a fefeature about. Nobody's ever done it. How the team or the coach or the GM, whoever, decides who gets the scoop. That's a whole sub part of the process that is strangely fascinating, and I only know because I know a couple GMs.
What do you mean?
Well, they, let's say I'm running the Timberwolves. Let's say I'd gotten the job, and I'm sure the Timberwolves fans at this point have wished I had after what happened with the Rubio thing. But so I decide, under everyone's nose, I have now signed Rubio. And I am about to give that scoop to somebody. And I have 4 writers that I really like and a radio host that I really like. And I've got to pick one of those guys. It's like you're picking between your kids. That's kind of, when you think about it, kind of interesting. He's got to decide, am I going to give it to the Star Tribune? Am I going to give it to Rick Bucher? And maybe Bucher will help me later if I need him. It's like you're handing out this carrot. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Here's the thing. I'm not bagging on reporters here. Okay?
I'm not either.
What I'm saying is, it's not about Rick Bucher breaking the story. It's if Bucher is close enough to the story, even if he's 10 minutes late, but if his perspective on it is shrewder, that's much more memorable to me as a consumer.
Well, I think the goal for those guys isn't the individual story, it's the collection. Because I'm friends with Bucher, I'm friends with Stein, I'm friends with a few other guys. Their goal is to consistently be in the mix with these stories. They want to be at the forefront So that's what you want to get to. You don't care, they don't care that they broke the story that Hedo's not signing with the Blazers, but that they broke 7 of those stories in July.
Yeah, and even if you don't break that story, if I go to you later that day and you have an opinion on it and most of the information, that's fine.
Right.
I mean, I listen, like the New York papers, they're very good. There's a lot of, the columnists in New York are okay. The reporting's fantastic.
Yeah.
The Yankee reporting is just absurdly good. The columnists are, sort of hit and miss to me. I think L.A. is a much better columnist town.
I agree.
Than New York. But
so wait a second. So where do you see sports radio going? Because in my opinion, the show that you're doing, which moves pretty fast, I honestly never thought that anybody was going to really totally figure out the constrictions of ESPN Radio. And you and I have talked about this. You got the 6 minutes of 2020 flashes. You got the 8 and 9 minute segments. You're having a longer conversation with me than I've ever heard you have with anybody.
Yes.
And this is, you have to admit, a little more fun to be able to just talk to somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
How did you figure out all the little parameters, constraints, all that stuff?
You have to improve your teasing. You have to. I consider every segment its own little chapter. You just I think of everything as a 6-minute story, and it's my job to come up with 20 interesting 6-minute stories.
When you say teasing, you mean like, coming up, I will tell you who was the underrated steroid guy.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that helps.
You're good at that.
Yeah, you have to be. I mean, I don't have a choice. And I think what I've done on my radio show now is because my segments are shorter, I make everyone a little story. And, an opinion or an angle on something, like you said, I try to do that. And it's not a perfect world. But you have to remember, too, when you're a solo host, shorter segments are a breath of fresh air because I can re-energize, refocus. I've got 1 million 6-minute stories. I don't have 4 10-minute stories. So I need, as a solo host, I love there's too many commercials, and I'd like a little bit more time. But by and large, it probably hurts Mike and Mike, who would like more time to stretch out. For me, I can really have more impactful short segments and stories. Take a breath, get another angle, here we go again. So it's helped me, actually. It's helped my ratings. They've actually gone up in the last year since the clock at ESPN's changed.
So you're like a 440 sprinter.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
But the 880 wouldn't be as comfortable.
Yeah, it's just, when I first came to ESPN, the first segment of the hour was 14 minutes. I mean, just give me a book. I'll read it on tape. I mean, what in the hell am I going to do with 14 minutes?
By yourself, that's a long time.
That is a long time for a president with a teleprompter and a Congress cheering him on. That's a long time. So for me, 6.5 minutes is wonderful.
But do you see doing this by yourself forever? Or do you see eventually maybe having a second dude there, a second lady? Because I don't know.
I think I'll probably do it solo. Television, I really prefer bouncing off somebody. It's just a different kind of experience.
Ooh, good segue.
Yeah, that wasn't it? Wow.
Yeah, that was a nice one.
Transparent.
Yeah, because you were blessed to have a very capable host on the Sports Nation show. She's very fetching on camera, and she's professional and good.
She's a total gamer. Just total get it, girl. We totally lucked out. And really, it's more her show than mine. She directs kind of the way we're going. When we hired her, we auditioned like 7, 8 women, and she was so good. Instantly. She did a segment with me, and I turned to her and I said, "It's your job, call your agent." I'm like, "It's your job." And I didn't have the ultimate say, although I had some influence, how much, who knows. But I was like, wow, she's really good. And she's really funny. Like in person, like very few women comedians, you're like, that person's funny. I mean, there's a Joy Behar or something, but there's not many. She is genuinely funny and cool. I've laughed at her. She's odd. She's goofy. She's really a get-it girl.
So how have you enjoyed your TV transition so far?
It's okay. I mean, it's a long day, but I've tried to. It's weird. Just change your diet. A lot of it is dieting and tempo and sleep, and because your day's longer. But it's been fine.
That's fine. When did you figure that out? Because I unfortunately only figured that out last year.
What do you mean?
How exercising and eating the right kind of meals and not chowing down and stuff like that. I could actually help myself as the day went along instead of hurt myself.
My ex-wife's, who I'm still really good friends with, is a triathlete. And so for, all those years, I was in a situation, in a relationship where, nutrition and food was talked about a lot. And then I think when I got divorced, I even kind of angled in more. You're single, you date, your shirt's off more.
Right.
You know, I mean, your appearance becomes more important. And, you know, you get older, I think you can sense your mortality. You kind of watch how you look and what you eat. So I've always been fairly obsessive on what you eat and how you treat yourself. And
so you're vain.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's true. It's like, yeah, I mean, I'm in television now. You have to kind of, you know, you got to take care of yourself.
HD is tough.
It is.
You can't let anything slip in HD.
I mean, HD is like a whitehead. It becomes Mount Vesuvius.
It's the great equalizer. So you're doing the show, and then you go to the TV studio, and like within an hour you're taping Sports Nation?
TV show's over at 2. I go over for 45 minutes to address the topics, maybe 50 minutes. Get makeup takes 10 to 15.
The radio show's over at 2.
The radio show's over at 2.
Gotcha. Because I'm on West Coast time, so I can never
it's 11.
translate.
Yeah, it's 11. So then I have 2 hours, and by an hour I've done all my prep, and then I go to do makeup. Then we tape the game segment. We do some other things, prep for the show, and you're ready to go.
I could never do it. I mean, I could barely do this podcast today.
Why?
Just doing 1 hour. I'm worn out. I need a vacation. Yeah. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you pump them out.
My guess is if the TV show was a hit, you know, if it was a big hit, I couldn't do this schedule for 10 years. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's good for your life. I don't think it's good for your social life. I can do it for a few years, but I think over time, if the TV show was a hit, you'd probably just because you'd want more energy and less is more.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
That's a good way to put it. I've tried to employ the less is more strategy as much as I can by not writing at all.
Well, I mean, you know, the truth is, if you are in your situation where you have a loyal audience, it's better to do really good stuff than a lot of stuff. So if you take a day off and you come in with a great column, it's better. I mean, your audience isn't going away. You know, they like you. They're coming back. As long as you keep a consistently funny product, they're coming back.
I've experimented different ways. Right now I'm in the quality mindset. But there were times when there were some basketball playoffs where I'm like, I'm going to write every day. This will be fun. I think it's important to, mix it up. That's why I'm going to be interested to see what happens to you after about 6 months of the schedule.
Yeah, so am I.
Because you got to be on the whole time, It's not like what people don't understand is it's not like you're going to an office and you're banging out office work. Like it's almost like you're on a date. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to impress somebody for an hour, but in this case, you're trying to impress somebody for 5 hours every day.
Yeah. Well, thankfully on the television show, I have a really good co-host, and she's really funny and bright, so she's carrying a huge part of that. And
don't forget your all-star production team.
You know, my TV guys and radio people, they're good. I mean, it's understood at ESPN, my radio staff is really good. Everybody gets it. And the guys on television, it's the best group of people I've ever worked with. They're so funny. Jamie Horowitz, they're bright, they're funny. When I started 18 months ago, they pitched this show to me. And so I met the people, and it was like, okay, these are get it guys. They were just really funny. Some had done stand-up. Kevin Wilde, Jacoby, they'd done stand-up. And I was like, okay, these guys get it. They're funny. And it's like you like hanging around guys you like. They're funny guys who make me – like every one of my friends, Bill, is funny. They all do different stuff. I don't have a single friend who's not either thought-provoking or funny. Some are successful, some aren't. Some are broke, some have money. They're all funny.
I think you're giving Horowitz a lot of credit. I don't know. It's kind of a stretch.
You don't. What about what's this?
The guy was born in a 3-piece suit.
But it's funny. We've loosened him up.
I know you have. And we all appreciate it.
So do you know Horowitz?
I know all those guys. I'm rooting for your show. I want it to work. I want Kevin Wildes and Dave Jacoby to rule the world.
They're good guys. They're Boston guys. Well,
they're
Horowitz
East Coast guys. Yeah. Horowitz is Boston.
Do you miss the East Coast?
I do, and I don't, because I talked to my dad the other day, and he casually mentioned that it had rained 24 out of 30 days in Boston in June, and I've always been a warm weather, sun, blue skies guy. It just puts me in a better mood.
Yep.
I wish that wasn't the case, but I could never ever live in Portland. I could never live in London. I would just go crazy. It honestly affects my mood. I've always liked sunlight. I'm like a reverse vampire.
You know what though, Bill? The good thing is, if you're a sports fan, living on the West is great.
It's fantastic, except for the parts like yesterday when Nomar came back to Fenway.
Right.
Like that. Those are one of those nights where I'm like, crap, I wish I lived back home.
But when you're out West, you get the Red Sox at 4.
I do.
And the Dodgers at 7.
Don't forget about football at 10.
Oh, it's incredible. You wake up, you go out Saturday night, it's your big date night with your wife or girlfriend. You go out, you party, you hang a few margaritas, you wake up at 7:30, you have a big omelet, you read the paper, game on.
And when I go back east now during NFL season, I wake up on Sunday, and now because I have kids, I'm just automatically going to wake up at like 7:30.
It sucks.
It's 5.5 hours until the first NFL game. I go crazy. I can't stand it.
Yeah, it's all guy. You drive around, you go to the Starbucks on a Sunday morning. It's all guys in the yard doing honeydews. You know, out west, you don't have to do honeydews.
I'll tell you another thing, because your body clock does change a little when you have kids. And I was one of those guys, East Coast. No matter how late the game was on, I was staying up. If we were going 18 innings in Seattle, I was there until the bitter end. I don't know if I could, I think I'd miss all the West Coast NBA games if I was living East Coast now. You
know what, Bill? First of all, the regular season, what I do is I watch the schedule and I make sure I watch the West teams that are of note, like the Spurs or the Blazers or the Lakers when they come out here. I even go to some of them. But you know what? There is something funny. Like these guys, my bosses at ESPN.
Yeah.
Like Pete Genesini, he will go to a Yankee game on a Tuesday and get home at midnight. I would never, and he has to get up at 5:36. East Coast guys, no problem. West Coast guys, they don't do that. They don't do it as my West Coast buddies. They're not getting home at 12:45 from a baseball game.
No,
they're just not doing it.
You pass an age where that doesn't become that feasible anymore. I'll tell you another thing though. I've mentioned this a few times in columns. Now that TVs are better and it's actually more fun to watch games at home, at the appeal of, Dodger Stadium's 15 minutes from my house. I've been once this year. Because for me, it's like I have a giant TV and I can watch any game I want. And do I want to just drive over to Dodger Stadium and see two random teams? Like, no, I'd rather be home.
This has been a symphony on our show. We say this all the time. And I hate saying it because StubHub sponsors my show. But I'm telling you, I'm going to fewer and fewer games.
Yeah.
I'm building a bar right now, which is going to be done August 12th for USA Mexico. I've become a soccer nerd. And I'm literally, I'm putting a huge television I have upstairs, putting it downstairs. I watch. Bill, who wants to go in November to the Meadowlands? It's awful. The fans are drunk. It's 28 degrees. It's windy. It's an hour there. It's 2 home. What kind of quality of life is that?
Well, for me, it's like if going to an NFL game, I feel like it's a lost Sunday because now I'm at this one game. And really, let's be honest, going to a football game isn't that fun. There's 5 minutes of TV timeouts and then 3 plays and then 5 more minutes.
College is better than pro.
College is much better than pro.
Girls, bands, tailgating, yeah.
But when you go to a football game, you miss all the other games. You've now said, all right, I have basically missed all the 1 o'clock games, all the 4 o'clock games. I've missed all the cutaways. I've missed every exciting fourth quarter moment because I chose to go to this one game and see my team. I don't know. It's kind of at this point, it's a trade-off. It wasn't a trade-off in 1995. In 1995, I was like, yeah, I'll go to the Pats. That sounds great. What else was I going to do? There's nothing else on.
No, it's in this economy, sorry, but you go to Heineken, $9 at Yankee Stadium, Subway, tickets. It's a schloid. Amanda, my producer last year, went to a Giants game and said it was awful. The fans were rude. It was vulgar. I'm not taking my kids to a Raider game.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
I think this is why hockey could potentially make a comeback because it's really fun to go in person and it's actually better than seeing it on TV. And as you said, and I wrote about this recently with HD, soccer is so much more fun to watch. I watch soccer now. I never watched soccer
International
before.
Soccer on HD is fantastic.
I'm ready. I picked Tottenham Hotspur 3 years ago, and I was going to follow them, and then I had kids. I was working on a book, and I never could throw myself into it. August 15th, I'm in. EPL.
Oh, so you're
there.
You're going to go because
I'm not going to go. I'm going to start following it. It's on every Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember, but I'm in.
You know what? So am I. People mock me. I'm telling my audience, August 12th, USA Mexico. I'm having a party.
Yeah, I've watched I probably watched 6 or 7 soccer games. And this is why I don't think the MLS is going to work, because I just think Americans want to watch the best.
Yeah.
I was so impressed by Brazil in the second half of that USA game when they just destroyed us. But, man, if you like sports, how could you not appreciate what they did in that game?
Listen, you don't have to be an NFL fan to look at the Steelers and go, man, they're really good and physical. I mean, they're really good. They're always better in the fourth quarter than the first. It's just, I'm sorry, you don't have to be an NBA fan to watch the Celtics-Bulls series and go, crap. I mean, every single game was unbelievable.
Right.
If you're a fan of drama, what's not to like?
Yeah. I think I could see, the guys that run ESPN have done a really nice job of this. They're putting the world-class soccer on more and more, and it's getting ratings. They're putting these games on in the middle of the day during the weekday, and they're getting much bigger ratings than anybody would expect.
By the way, and that's just on ESPN. ESPN Deportes has a separate audience.
Yeah.
So when you combine ESPN Deportes and ESPN, it beats hockey significantly.
Yeah, I really think that my one prediction for this next decade would be that I think international soccer is going to make a much bigger inroad than any of us expect.
I believe, call me nuts, that the World Cup, because of the cost of the Olympics and televising it, in a shrinking global economy, the World Cup will replace the Olympics as the every 4-year event. And I really strongly believe it. Listen,
wow. What do we do with gymnastics? So many people, their lives revolve around those 2 weeks with prepubescent gymnastic women.
It'll still be there, but the World Cup will surpass it. It's cheaper to televise. I mean, let's face it. If America didn't care about the Olympics, they were done in 76. Listen, Montreal was going broke. Nobody wanted the Olympics. You couldn't make any money on the Olympics. It hurt your country. If it wasn't for NBC, I'm not sure we'd have an Olympics. It's just too expensive. It's too expensive. The Olympics are totally controlled by NBC. I
was fascinated by the Redeem team and how, all these guys, Kobe and all these guys, such a big deal for them to play. And then they showed the games in the middle of the night here, 3 o'clock. Hey, there's your payoff, Kobe. 3:30 in the morning, you're beating some crap team. Yeah. I don't know where I don't know where that goes, but I just think the soccer thing. It's funny because we always thought, when is soccer going to take off in America? And we always thought it would be with an American league. I don't think so. I think it's going to be a league where the games aren't even here.
Well, ask yourself this. We have a unique situation in America where there are a lot of people immigrating from our southern border. Who comes from the family in the southern border? The young male. The young male's the biggest sports fan. The young male makes the money as discretionary income. If you look at how our country is changing, more young men who grew up in a soccer-crazed culture, it's pretty obvious to see that soccer's here to stay. And ESPN now, with ESPN Deportes, has put their arms around it. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, not everything here works. The mobile phone thing wasn't a home run, but if we make a 10-year commitment to international soccer, the chances are it'll grow.
Yeah, and then you throw in the part where people just like being home now. With their giant TVs. It's just as fun for them to watch a game at home as it is to go to a game. So I'm starting to wonder, can a league make it that isn't even in America? And I kind of think, yeah.
Oh, so do I. So do I. I mean, listen.
We'll see, though. They need, the Pele type to push over the top.
Listen, we are a star culture. We like our stars. But I'll say this. The international soccer players have hot wives and girlfriends.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. They're like Elton John. They're all like superstar, weird glasses, crazy entourage. That sells here.
Yeah.
It just does.
All right, I'll let you go. You've been too generous with your time. You've had a long work day.
Hey, when are you coming back east?
I'm not sure. My Bristol appearance that you were lucky enough to witness last month.
Yes.
That's like the Olympics. It happens every 4 years. So it'll probably be 2013. But hopefully we can come on again. Hey, and we can solve some more sports problems.
I love talking to you. Anytime you're here, I admire your work. You're a very witty, funny guy. And
thank you, too.
And let's keep in touch, man.
Sports Nation. Hold on, I'm getting my West Coast time screwed up. 4 o'clock East Coast time.
1 o'clock Pacific.
1 o'clock West Coast time, and then the Herd on ESPN Radio. Colin Cowherd, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
So I get to sign off.
Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at PodCenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.